My parents told everyone my PhD was worthless, while gloating about my brother's wealth. But when they fell on hard times, I decided to teach them a lesson they won't forget. The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my mother fawn over my brother for the 1000th time. To Quentin, she beamed, the most successful entrepreneur this family has ever produced. I'm Zella, and I was standing in my parents' lavishly decorated living room, surrounded by family members who'd gathered to celebrate my brother's latest business venture. The same week, I'd received my PhD in psychology after 8 years of grueling work. Not that anyone here seemed to care. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I actually have some news too. Oh, honey, just a minute. She cut me off, rushing to adjust Quentin's tie for the photos. Dwayne, come stand next to your son. Warren, would you mind taking the picture? My father proudly clasped Quentin's shoulder. That's my boy, showing everyone how it's done in the real world, aren't you? I knocked back the rest of my champagne, catching my best friend Kira's sympathetic glance from across the room. She mouthed, "You okay?" And I gave her a tight smile. Did you hear about the new contract? Quentin's voice boomed across the room. 20 million in projected revenue, the biggest deal Morrison Enterprises has ever landed. More applause, more congratulations. I slipped into the kitchen, needing a moment alone, but my cousin Beatrice followed me in. I heard about your PhD, she said quietly. That's incredible, Zeller. I can't believe no one's mentioned it. Thanks, B. I started loading dishes into the dishwasher, keeping my hands busy. 8 years of research, teaching, and writing. But hey, what's that compared to another business deal, right? It's not fair, she said, helping me with the glasses. You know, you're the reason I decided to go back to school. Seeing you pursue your dreams despite the kitchen door burst open. My mother rushed in looking flustered. Zella, where are those petite fours I asked you to arrange? Everyone's waiting. Mom, I actually wanted to tell you about not now, sweetie. Your brother's about to give a speech about his new venture. Come on, both of you. Back in the living room, Quentin stood in the center, commanding attention like always. I positioned myself near the back next to Kira, who squeezed my hand. The Morrison name has always stood for excellence, Quentin began, raising his glass. And today, I'm proud to announce his phone rang, cutting through his speech. He glanced at the screen, and I watched as all the color drained from his face. Excuse me, he muttered, stepping away. Through the window, I could see him pacing on the patio, gesturing frantically. Everything okay? Our father called out. Quentin burst back in, his perfectly tailored suit suddenly seeming too tight. I have to go, he announced, grabbing his keys. Emergency at the office. But son, the celebration? Dad started. I said I have to go, Quentin shouted, making everyone jump. He stormed out, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Warren, my parents' longtime friend, cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all call it a night. As guests began filtering out, I overheard my mother whisper to my father, Dwayne, did you see his face? Something's wrong. I'm sure it's nothing, Dad replied, but his voice lacked conviction. He's handled bigger crises before. I gathered my things, ready to escape when my mother finally noticed me. Oh, Zella, be a dear and help clean up before you go. Actually, Mom, I've been trying to tell you all evening. I successfully defended my dissertation last week. I'm officially Dr. Morrison now. She blinked, then patted my cheek absently. That's nice, honey. But right now, I'm worried about your brother. Could you check on him tomorrow? I stood there watching them huddle together, discussing Quentin's abrupt departure, my achievement already forgotten. Kira appeared at my side, car keys in hand. Come on, Dr. Morrison, she said loudly enough for my parents to hear. I'm taking you out for a proper celebration. As we walked out, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the hallway mirror, shoulders squared, head high despite the familiar ache in my chest. Something about Quentin's exit felt different this time, like a shift in the air before a storm. I didn't know it then. But that night would mark the beginning of a change none of us saw coming. Sometimes karma takes its time. But when it arrives with a vengeance. 3 days after the disastrous family gathering, my office phone rang. I was grading papers when my mother's number flashed across the screen. Zella, are you sitting down? Her voice trembled. It's about Quentin. I set down my red pen. What happened? Everything's gone. The company, it's bankrupt. He took risks, massive risks. The investors are threatening legal action. She broke into sobs. Your father's beside himself. The news shouldn't have given me satisfaction, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't. Where's Quentin now? He's not answering our calls. Your father and I, we need help. Of course they did. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the psychology degrees hanging on my wall. What kind of help, Mom? Financial, she whispered, as if the word itself was shameful. We put everything into his business. Our retirement fund, the house equity, everything. I gripped my desk. Are you telling me you mortgaged the house to fund his ventures? He promised it was foolproof, she defended. He showed us the projections, the plans. A knock at my office door interrupted us. My colleague wanted to remind me about the department meeting, but I waved her away. How much? I asked. The number she quoted made me glad I was sitting down. We wouldn't ask, she added quickly. But you're the only one with a stable, what do you call it, academic position? Tenure-track professorship, Mom. I'm a university lecturer with a PhD. Remember the achievement you couldn't spare 5 minutes to acknowledge last week? Silence stretched between us. Then, Zeller, please. We're desperate. I closed my eyes, memories flooding back. 12-year-old me winning the state science fair, only to have my parents skip the ceremony for Quentin's football game. 16-year-old me earning a full academic scholarship, overshadowed by Quentin's first business venture. 25-year-old me completing my master's degree, while my parents bragged about Quentin's new office building. I'll think about it, I said finally. But I said I'll think about it. I hung up and immediately called Kira. 20 minutes later, we sat in the campus cafe, my untouched coffee growing cold. They're finally reaping what they sowed, Kira said, stirring her tea. You don't owe them anything, I know, but I watch students hurrying past outside. They're still my parents. Parents who never supported your dreams, who dismissed your achievements, who now need my help. I smiled grimly. Ironic, isn't it? My phone buzzed. A text from Warren. Heard about Quentin. Board meeting records show he falsified projections. This is bigger than bankruptcy. Oh God, I muttered, showing Kira the message. She read it and looked up, her lawyer instincts kicking in. This could mean criminal charges. Another text came through, this time from Beatrice. Just heard the news. Are you okay? Can we talk? I texted back, suggesting dinner tonight. Then I turned to Kira, an idea forming. What if I began slowly? What if I could use this situation to change things, really change things? Kira leaned forward. I'm listening. They want my help? Fine, but this time it comes with conditions. I pulled out my notebook, the one I usually used for lecture notes. They've spent years dismissing me, dismissing my choices. Maybe it's time for a public acknowledgement. What are you thinking? A family reunion, a big one, where they'll have to stand up in front of everyone and admit how wrong they've been. I started writing rapidly. They'll have to acknowledge my achievements, their favoritism, everything. That's actually brilliant. Kira grinned. Brutal, but brilliant. I'll help them, but only after they've learned their lesson. After they understand what it feels like to be truly seen. My phone rang again. Dad this time. I let it go to voicemail. Are you sure about this? Kira asked. It could backfire. I thought about my students, especially the young women who came to my office hours seeking advice about pursuing their dreams despite family pressure. I thought about Beatrice, inspired to return to school because of my example. I'm sure, I said, my voice stronger than I'd expected. It's time they understood that success isn't just about profit margins and business deals. It's about persistence, dedication, and staying true to yourself, despite everyone telling you you're wrong. I picked up my phone to call my mother back, my hand steady this time. The plan was taking shape in my mind, clear and sharp as crystal. They wanted my help. They'd get it, but on my terms. This time, I would write the rules of engagement. A family reunion. My mother's voice crackled through the speakerphone. Zeller, we need help now, not a party. I sat at my dining room table surrounded by my support system, Kira, Warren, and Beatrice. It's not just a party, Mom. It's my condition for helping you. I don't understand. Let me be clear, I said, drawing strength from Kira's encouraging nod. I'll help with the financial situation, but first, you and Dad will host a family reunion. During it, you'll both publicly acknowledge your favoritism toward Quentin and your dismissal of my achievements. The silence that followed was deafening. You can't be serious, Dad's voice cut in. They must have been on speakerphone too. This is blackmail. No, this is accountability. I kept my voice steady. You want my help? These are my terms. But what about your brother? Mom pleaded. This would humiliate him. Quentin humiliated himself, Warren spoke up. And from what I've seen of the company records, he's lucky if embarrassment is all he faces. Warren? Mom sounded betrayed. You're part of this? I've watched for years as you dismissed your daughter's incredible achievements, he replied. Maybe it's time for some honest reflection. Beatrice leaned toward the phone. Aunt Sophia, Uncle Dwayne, Zeller's inspired so many of us. Do you know she's the reason I went back to college? While you were busy praising Quentin's latest scheme, your daughter was quietly changing lives. We never meant to. Mom's voice wavered. To what? I pressed. To make me feel worthless? To treat my PhD like a hobby? To dismiss 20 years of hard work? That's not fair, Dad protested weakly. No. What's not fair is mortgaging your future on Quentin's empty promises while treating me like an afterthought. But I'm offering you a chance to make it right. Kira slid a legal pad across the table. She'd already drafted a basic agreement, always the prepared lawyer. The reunion will be in 2 weeks, I continued. I'll handle the arrangements. All you have to do is show up and tell the truth. 2 weeks? Mom gasped. That's too soon. Your creditors won't wait much longer than that, Warren reminded them gently. The silence stretched again. I could almost see them exchanging looks, weighing their options. What exactly would we need to say? Dad finally asked. The truth. About how you've treated me compared to Quentin, about dismissing my academic achievements, about the constant favoritism, in front of everyone. Mom's voice was small, in front of everyone. Beatrice squeezed my hand under the table as we waited for their response. And if we do this, Dad said slowly, you'll help us? Yes, I'll help restructure your debt and set up a payment plan, but only after the reunion. More silence. Then Mom cleared her throat. We'll do it. After ending the call, I slumped in my chair, emotionally drained. Kira immediately poured wine for everyone. You did it, she said, raising her glass. I'm so proud of you. They actually agreed, Beatrice marveled. I never thought. They're desperate, Warren reminded us. But that doesn't make this any less significant. My phone buzzed. A text from Quentin. Mom told me what you're doing. We need to talk. He finally surfaces, Kira muttered, reading over my shoulder. I typed back tomorrow, my office, 2 p.m. Are you sure you want to meet him alone? Beatrice asked. He's not in a position to make demands anymore. I took a long sip of wine. Besides, it's time for some sibling honesty too. Warren checked his watch and stood. I should go. But Zeller, what you're doing, it's not just about your parents. You're setting an example for every woman who's been told her achievements don't matter. After everyone left, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the family photo from years ago. We were all smiling, but I remembered what happened right after. Mom fussing over Quentin's hair while I stood awkwardly to the side. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Dr. Morrison, I'm in your Psychology of Family Dynamics class. Your lecture today about standing up to toxic family patterns really helped me. I finally told my parents I'm switching my major to what I actually want to study. Thank you. I smiled, saving the message. Tomorrow would bring confrontation with Quentin, and the reunion would undoubtedly be dramatic. But tonight's message reminded me why this mattered. Sometimes the biggest acts of courage inspired the smallest acts of bravery in others, and that made everything worth it. Earth. Quentin arrived at my office looking nothing like the polished entrepreneur from the family gathering. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, and his usual confident stride replaced by an uncertain shuffle. You look terrible, I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. Yeah. Well, bankruptcy and potential criminal charges will do that to you. He slumped into the seat. What are you trying to prove with this reunion stunt? I folded my hands on my desk. It's not a stunt. It's a reckoning. Come on, Zeller. They're our parents. Exactly our parents, not just yours. I pulled out a faded photograph from my desk drawer. Remember this? My high school graduation. You weren't there because you had a crucial business meeting. Mom and Dad left halfway through to help you set up your first office. He shifted uncomfortably. That was years ago. Last week, I got my PhD, and they couldn't spare 5 minutes to acknowledge it. Nothing's changed, Quentin. A student walked past my office doing a double take at seeing the famous Quentin looking so disheveled. He quickly shut my door. You don't understand what I'm dealing with right now, he said, voice low. The investors are out for blood. The SEC is investigating. And whose fault is that? You falsified projections, took ridiculous risks, and dragged our parents down with you. He slammed his fist on my desk. I was trying to keep the business alive by committing fraud. I kept my voice steady. Warren showed me the board meeting records. Quentin's face paled. Warren needs to mind his own business. Mom and Dad's retirement fund was your business. Their house was your business. You made it everyone's business. He ran his hands through his unkempt hair. So this is revenge? Make them humiliate themselves in front of the whole family to punish me? No. I stood up, walking to my window. This is about truth, about consequences, about years of them treating your mistakes as more valuable than my achievements. You're going to destroy them. They destroyed themselves when they put all their eggs in your basket without even looking at mine. I turned back to face him. Did you know Beatrice went back to school because of me? That my students write to me about finding courage to pursue their dreams. That's different. Why? Because it doesn't come with a profit margin? Because it doesn't fit their definition of success? A knock at my door interrupted us. My department head poked her head in. Dr. Morrison, sorry to interrupt, but your guest lecture starts in 15 minutes. Thank you. I smiled. I'll be right there. After she left, Quentin stood up. You've made your point. But this reunion, it's cruel. Cruel was watching them drain their savings for your ventures while telling me my education was a waste of time. Cruel was sitting through countless family dinners, hearing about your latest deal while they ignored my publications and research. They love you, he protested weakly. They love you more, and now they're going to admit it. I gathered my lecture materials. The reunion is happening, Quentin. Be there or don't. For once, you're not the center of attention. He moved to the door, then paused. You know what's ironic? All those years I was jealous of you. I nearly dropped my books. What? You knew exactly what you wanted, worked for it, built something real. He laughed bitterly. I just kept chasing bigger deals, trying to live up to their expectations. Look where that got me. Before I could respond, he was gone, leaving me standing in my office with those words echoing in my head. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. The invitations arrived. Are you sure about this? Another from Beatrice. Just got the reunion invite. You're so brave. I'm with you all the way. And one from Warren. SEC called. They want to interview your parents about their investments in Quentin's company. Timing couldn't be worse or better. I walked to my lecture hall thinking about Quentin's confession. All those years of feeling less than, and he had been jealous of me. The thought almost made me laugh, but as I set up my presentation on family dynamics and psychological validation, I realized something. This reunion wasn't just about making my parents admit their favoritism. It was about breaking a cycle, about showing everyone, my parents, my students, Beatrice, even Quentin, that success isn't measured by dollar signs. My phone buzzed one more time. Kira, ready for tomorrow's reunion planning. Got some ideas that'll make sure your parents can't wiggle out of this. I smiled, typing back. More ready than they'll ever be. The truth was coming, whether they were ready or not. The reunion venue buzzed with nervous energy as family members filed in. I stood near the entrance, greeting everyone while keeping one eye on my parents who huddled in a corner, looking like they were attending a funeral rather than a family gathering. Quite a turnout, Kira whispered, appearing at my side. I count at least 50 people. 50 witnesses, I corrected quietly. Aunt Margaret bustled over, pulling me into a tight hug. Zella darling, I heard you're a doctor now, a real doctor. Why didn't your mother tell us? I caught Mom's flinch from across the room. Maybe you should ask her that question, Aunt Margaret. The elderly woman frowned. But before she could respond, Warren appeared with a glass of water for me. Your father's looking a bit pale. Should we move up the speeches? Let them sweat a little longer, I said, watching Dad loosen his collar for the third time in 10 minutes. Beatrice approached with her parents. Uncle Dwayne and Aunt Sophia seemed tense, she observed. Have they practiced what they're going to say? That wasn't part of the deal. Whatever they say has to be genuine. The room grew more crowded. Second cousins I hadn't seen in years. Family friends, even my old high school teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who'd always encouraged my academic pursuits when my parents wouldn't. Is Quentin coming? Someone asked loudly. Mom's head snapped up, hope flashing across her face, but I knew better. He texted earlier. Can't watch this train wreck. Sorry, sis. Warren clinked his glass, calling for attention. If everyone could take their seats, we have some special presentations planned. I watched my parents reluctantly make their way to the front row. Mom's hands trembled as she smoothed her skirt. Dad's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. First, Warren continued, I'd like to acknowledge our host, Dr. Zella Morrison, whose recent achievement of earning her PhD in psychology is just one of many accomplishments we're celebrating today. Applause filled the room. Several relatives looked confused, clearly hearing this news for the first time. And now, Warren gestured to my parents, Sophia and Dwayne would like to say a few words. Mom stood up first, her legs shaking. She reached the podium and gripped it like a lifeline. Her voice cracked. The room went silent. I could hear someone's watch ticking. I don't know how to start, she whispered. Try the truth, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the quiet room. She looked at me, really looked at me. Maybe for the first time in years. The truth is, I've been a terrible mother to Zella. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. She glanced at Dad, who had gone completely white. We always favored Quentin. We dismissed Zeller's dreams, her hard work, her brilliant mind. We were so focused on what we thought success should look like, that we failed to see the incredible daughter right in front of us. Aunt Margaret made a disapproving sound. Someone whispered, I knew it. Dwayne, Mom turned to my father. You need to speak too. Dad stood slowly, like each movement caused him pain. He didn't go to the podium, instead turning to face me directly. I was wrong, he said, his voice rough. I was so wrong, Zeller. Every time you achieved something remarkable, I downplayed it. Every time you reached higher, I questioned why. And now he spread his hands helplessly. Now you're the successful one, the stable one, the one we turn to for help. The irony isn't lost on me. And Quentin, I prompted, tell them about Quentin. Mom's sob cut through the room. We gave him everything, every penny we had, because we believed in him, more than we believed in you. And now you're facing bankruptcy, I finished for her, because you bet everything on the wrong child. The silence that followed was absolute. I could feel every eye in the room darting between us, processing this public confession. Suddenly, the back door burst open. Everyone turned to see a man in a dark suit stride in, holding up a badge. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, he announced. I'm with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We need to ask you some questions about your investments in your son's company. Mom swayed on her feet. Dad reached for her, but she was already crumpling toward the floor. Mom! I rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Despite everything, she was still my mother. As chaos erupted around us with relatives jumping up and the SEC agent approaching, I held my unconscious mother and looked at my father's devastated face. This wasn't how I'd planned the revelation to end, but then again, karma has its own schedule. She's coming around, I said, fanning my mother's face with a program from the reunion. We'd moved her to a private room adjacent to the main hall, away from the prying eyes of relatives. Mom's eyelids fluttered open. The SEC, she whispered, is waiting outside, Kira finished, her lawyer mode activated. And as your daughter's best friend who happens to be an attorney, I strongly advise you not to speak to them without legal representation. Dad paced the small room. This is a nightmare, a complete nightmare. A knock at the door made us all jump. Warren stepped in, closing it quickly behind him. The agents are willing to schedule the interview for tomorrow morning. I've convinced them that today isn't optimal. Thank you, I said, still holding my mother's hand. Despite everything, her fingers clutched mine like a lifeline. Zeller. Mom's voice was barely audible. I'm so sorry, not just because we need help now, but truly sorry. Watching you catch me just now, after everything we've done. Mom, no, let me finish. She struggled to sit up. Your father and I, we were so wrong, so terribly wrong. For years, we measured success in dollars and deals. But look at you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You've built something real, something lasting. While we were chasing Quentin's empty promises, you were quietly changing lives. Dad stopped pacing. The things that teacher said out there before about how you inspired her students to pursue higher education. Mrs. Patterson? I supplied. Yes. She said you'd help dozens of first-generation college students believe in themselves. He rubbed his face. While we were ignoring you, you were helping others fight the same battle you fought with us. Another knock. Beatrice poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone else here to see you all. Quentin stepped into the room. Son. Mom tried to stand, but I gently pushed her back down. My brother looked worse than when I'd seen him in my office. His eyes were red-rimmed, his expensive watch conspicuously missing. I heard what happened, he said. Came as fast as I could. He turned to our parents. The SEC investigation, it's my fault, all of it. The falsified projections, the cooked books, I did it all. We know, Dad said quietly. You knew. Quentin's eyes widened. We suspected, Mom admitted. But we wanted so badly to believe in you that we ignored the signs, just like we ignored Zeller's achievements, because they didn't fit our narrow view of success. I have to turn myself in, Quentin announced. It's the only way to possibly reduce any charges against you both as investors. The room fell silent. I watched my brother, the golden child, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong, finally taking responsibility. There's something else, he continued, pulling out his phone. I recorded a confession about everything, the fraud, the fake projections, how I pressured you both to invest. I'm sending copies to the SEC and the prosecutor's office. Quentin, no. Mom started. Yes, Mom. For once in my life, I'm going to do the right thing. He looked at me. Zeller, I know it's too late, but I'm proud of you. You're the strongest person I know. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. It's not too late for honesty, Quentin. It's never too late. Warren cleared his throat. The guests are waiting. They'll want to know what's happening. I'll tell them, I said, standing. No. Mom grabbed my hand. We'll tell them, your father and I, the whole truth this time about our favoritism, about Quentin's business, about how we failed you. No more hiding. Dad nodded. We owe you that much and more. As they prepared to face the crowd again, Kira pulled me aside. Are you okay? I watched my family, my broken, flawed, finally honest family, gathering their courage. I think I will be. This isn't how I planned it, but maybe it's better. Real change doesn't come from carefully scripted confessions. Dr. Morrison? Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway. Your cousin Beatrice is out here telling everyone how you inspired her to go back to school. There are others who want to share similar stories. I smiled. Tell them to wait. My parents have something to say first. As we filed back into the main hall, I caught sight of my degrees hanging on the wall at home in my mind's eye. They weren't just pieces of paper anymore. They were proof that sometimes the greatest success comes from staying true to yourself, even when those who should believe in you don't. And sometimes, just sometimes, they finally learn to believe. The next morning, I sat in Kira's law office watching my parents sign paperwork for their legal representation. The SEC interview was scheduled for 2 hours from now. Just remember, Kira explained, sliding another document across her desk. Stick to the facts. Quentin's confession helps your case, but we need to establish that you were victims of his fraud, not willing participants. Mom's hand shook as she signed. Will they arrest him? Most likely, Kira said gently, but his cooperation will work in his favor. A knock at the door interrupted us. Warren entered, holding a stack of financial documents. I've gone through everything. The good news is there's a clear paper trail showing Quentin acted alone in falsifying the projections. And the bad news? Dad asked. You're still looking at significant financial losses. The house, the retirement accounts. I cleared my throat. That's where I come in. Everyone turned to look at me. I've spoken with my bank. I can take out a loan against my tenure position. It won't cover everything, but it'll keep you from losing the house. Zeller. No, Mom protested. After everything we've done. I'm not doing it for free, I interrupted. I have conditions. Dad straightened in his chair. Name them. First, you'll both attend therapy. Regular sessions to work through your favoritism issues and repair our relationship. They nodded. Second, you'll start attending my guest lectures at the university. I want you to really understand what I do, not just dismiss it as playing teacher. Of course, Mom whispered. And third, I pulled out a brochure from my bag. There's a mentorship program I run for first-generation college students. Many of them face the same biases I did from their families. You're going to help me expand it. Help you? Dad looked confused. By sharing your story. About how you learned the hard way that success isn't just about profit margins. About how you almost lost everything by betting on the wrong dreams. Before they could respond, Beatrice burst into the office out of breath. Turn on the news, quick. Warren grabbed the remote, flicking on Kira's office TV. There was Quentin being led out of the FBI building in handcuffs. The headline scrolled beneath. Local entrepreneur surrenders to authorities, confesses to investment fraud. Oh God. Mom covered her face. Oh, wait, Beatrice pointed. Look who's with him. The camera panned to show Quentin's lawyer speaking to reporters. My client has taken full responsibility for his actions and is cooperating fully with authorities. He wants to make it clear that his investors, including his parents, were victims of his deception. He really did it, Dad murmured. He's protecting us. Maybe he learned something too, I said quietly. My phone buzzed. A message from Mrs. Patterson. Your story has gone viral in our education circles. 3 students just changed their majors to follow their real passions instead of their parents' expectations. You're starting a movement, Dr. Morrison. Kira checked her watch. We should head to the SEC office. Are you coming, Zella? Actually, I stood up, gathering my things. I have a class to teach. Family dynamics and personal growth. Seems pretty relevant today. Mom caught my hand before I could leave. We'll make this right, Zeller. Not just the money, but everything. We're finally seeing you, really seeing you. I know, Mom. I squeezed her hand. That's why I'm helping. Because growth is possible even after decades of getting it wrong. As I walked across campus to my lecture hall, my phone kept buzzing with messages. Relatives expressing support, former students sharing their own stories of standing up to family pressure, even a message from Quentin's holding cell. Teaching them the hardest lesson was your greatest achievement, sis. I stepped into my classroom where eager faces looked up at me. Today's topic felt different, personal, real. Good morning, I began, writing on the board. When family dynamics shift, the power of truth and consequences. A student raised her hand. Dr. Morrison, we saw the news about your brother, and we heard about what happened at your family reunion. Would you share your story with us? I looked at their faces. Young people struggling with their own family expectations and pressures, each one carrying their own dreams that might not match their parents' visions. Yes, I said, setting down my notes. Because sometimes the most important lessons come from our hardest moments. And sometimes the greatest act of love is holding people accountable for their mistakes. The room fell silent, ready to learn from a story that was still unfolding but finally moving in the right direction. The autumn breeze rustled through campus as I walked with my mother toward the university auditorium. She clutched a program in her hands, reading it for the 10th time. Breaking Family Patterns, a discussion on academic achievement and parental expectations, she recited. I still can't believe you invited me to be a speaker. That's the point, Mom. Your perspective matters. Inside, the auditorium was packed. Faculty members, students, parents, and even some familiar faces from our family reunion filled the seats. Beatrice waved from the front row sitting next to Warren and Kira. Ready? I asked Mom as we headed backstage. She smoothed her blouse nervously. What if they judge me? What if they will? I said honestly. But they'll also learn from you. Dad was already waiting backstage adjusting his tie. After 3 months of therapy sessions and attending my lectures, he looked different, lighter somehow. Your brother called, he said. Wanted to wish us luck. The house lights dimmed. I stepped out to the podium facing the crowd. Welcome, everyone. Today's symposium is about more than academic achievement. It's about understanding how family expectations shape us, break us, and sometimes, if we're brave enough, rebuild us. I gestured to my parents. Please welcome my mother, Sophia, and my father, Dwayne. 3 months ago, they stood before our family and admitted to years of favoritism and dismissing my academic achievements. Today, they're here to share what they've learned. Mom approached the microphone, her hand steady now. I used to think success had a specific look, business suits, profit margins, things you could count. I pushed those expectations onto my children, celebrating one while dismissing the other. But sitting in my daughter's lectures these past months, watching her change lives, she turned to me, tears in her eyes. I saw real success, not in bank accounts, but in the faces of students who found courage through her story, in the letters from parents who learned to listen to their children's dreams. Dad stepped forward. We lost our retirement fund, nearly lost our house, backing what we thought was success. Meanwhile, our daughter built something priceless, a legacy of change and understanding. From the audience, a young woman stood up. Dr. Morrison's story gave me courage to tell my parents I'm switching from business to education. They're here today too. Another student rose. Her family dynamics research helped me understand my own parents' expectations. We're finally talking honestly. More people stood sharing similar stories. Mom gripped the podium, overwhelmed by the impact of our family's journey. Beatrice joined us on stage, holding up her recently acquired master's degree acceptance letter. This is what happens when we break the cycle, when we redefine success. I watched my parents beam with genuine pride. Not for the first time, but perhaps the most meaningful time. The mentorship program you helped expand, I told them, has tripled in size. Every story shared helps another family avoid our mistakes. And Quentin, someone asked from the audience, is serving his sentence. Dad answered. But he's teaching financial ethics to fellow inmates, finding his own way to make amends. After the symposium, as we gathered our things, Mom pulled me into a tight hug. I always thought I was teaching you about success, she whispered. But you taught me instead. We taught each other, I corrected. That's what family should do. Kira approached with a stack of business cards. 5 different universities want you to bring this symposium to their campuses. Your story is opening doors everywhere. Our story, I said, looking at my parents. Because it's not just about what went wrong, it's about how we made it right. Dad checked his watch. We should head out. Got our therapy session in an hour. Actually, Mom said, I thought we might stop by that little cafe near your office first, Zeller. I'd love to hear more about your new research project. I smiled, remembering all the times they'd brushed off my work. The change wasn't perfect. Healing rarely is, but it was real. As we walked across campus, a student ran up to us. Dr. Morrison, that quote you shared in class about success being measured in lives changed, not dollars earned, I told it to my dad. He finally agreed to let me study art therapy. Mom squeezed my hand. You see, that's the real family business, changing lives one truth at a time. Looking at them, my imperfect, growing, trying parents, I felt something settle in my heart. We'd never be the perfect family, but maybe that was the point. Sometimes the broken pieces, when honest about their cracks, fit together to create something stronger than before. And that was a success worth measuring.